I've been at a few funerals in my life, as I'm sure you all have. And there's many funerals where I've sat and I've listened to things that have been said about the people that were there to pay tribute to. And very often a lot of lies are told. We laugh because we know it's true. There's a lot of lies told. He was a wonderful man, always kind, always generous, always happy. And I was thinking to myself, that's not the guy I remember. It's not the guy I remember. But today, that's not the case. Today, that's not the case. No lies need told today. Everyone in this room is here because we know what kind of man John Muller was. Integrity, honesty, humility. That's it. Stood for it, showed it, acted it. That's who he was. John was a family first man. Always did everything for everybody else. Which is a unique thing because in the world today, that's not the case. See, the world actually reeks of self-gratification at the moment. What can I get out of it? What would make me happy? How can I benefit myself? John Muller wasn't that kind of guy. Now, a lot of people in this room or this barn have known him a lot longer than I have. But in a short time of knowing him, it's clear to see that that's who and what he was. That nothing was hidden. My actual experiences of John, as I say, I've known Phil and Georgie for about 10 or 11 years now. And he actually reminds me of my wife's grandfather. Before she was my wife, they used to have a Christmas party at home. And the grandparents, they would have us over. And because I now was the boyfriend, I got invited to Christmas. And I'd come over at Christmas, and here's Susie's grandfather. He's a war veteran. He had been in concentration camps. He had been in the front line. He had done unbelievable things. And here was I, a whippersnapper coming in with gel in my hair, worried about what kind of jeans I was wearing and how nice my trainers were, or techies as you call them. But he opened up his home. He opened both arms. He invited me in, and he made me feel welcome. And only now, today, that I've got children, that I realize just what a wonderful thing that was, considering I wasn't even family at that time. But the truth is, John did exactly the same for me and our family. We don't go home every Christmas to Ireland. Sometimes we stay here. To be fair, the sunshine helps. We do stay here for a tan. But every Christmas Eve, we came to the Mullers. And the same thing, John would allow us to come in. And he'd embrace us as his own. An open family and an open home. And that says a lot about who he is. Because the truth is, John, he didn't sit there with a grumpy face. He was a man of few words, but he had a few words about a lot of things. John would talk to you about anything. Didn't matter what it was, he had a view on it if you were prepared to listen to it. Didn't push a view, but had a view. Always prepared to tell a story, always prepared to sing a song, always made you feel welcome. Now, some people would say that the best way to describe that is maybe he just didn't know you. Maybe he just didn't know what type of person you were. But that's not true either. Because the truth is, it didn't actually matter to him what type of person you were. See, John didn't judge. Whether he agreed or whether he disagreed, it didn't matter who the visitor was. It only mattered that the host stayed the same. And when we come to days like today and funerals, the truth be told, all of us always ask the same question. Whether we ask it out loud or whether we just ask it ourselves, what's happened now? What's John doing now? What comes after this life? And the truth be told, the Oxford Dictionary has a view on it. The Oxford Dictionary says, death is the end of life, the action or the fact of dying, ceasing to exist. But that's not what the definition of death is in the Bible. In Romans 6:23, it says, for the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. Death is the separation from God. And believe me, John is more alive today than he ever has been. There is no separation from God today with John. And the truth be told, if you asked him to come back, even with all this rain, he probably would say no. When I think of John, I think of actually, and Phil to be fair, I think of the parable of the talents in the book of Matthew. I don't know if everyone's familiar with that. I'm sure it's a well-told story. But it's basically about this master who's going away, and he gives talents to 3 different servants. One gets 5 talents, one gets 3, or 2, and one gets 1. And the first 2, they take their talents and they put them into action, and they double what they get. And the third one takes his talent and buries it in the ground, waiting for the master to return. Now, when the master returns, the master is happy with the 2 that took the talents and the gifts that they were given and put them into action. But the one he didn't, he's unhappy with. Even though they're still there, he says, look here, I have it, I didn't lose it, here it is. And he says, no, you lazy and wicked servant. See, a lazy and wicked servant is not a way that you would describe John Muller. See, John Muller left a legacy for his family. The legacy is, take the gifts that you've been given, take the things that are at your hand, and go forth and multiply and do what you can. Do your best. Don't look at others. Don't be fearful. Don't be lazy. And don't waste this life. That's what he stood for. That's who he is. Now, when John Muller arrived at the gates, I'm sure that the words, well done, my good and faithful servant, you have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. John Muller's life is one to be celebrated. We're all sad, don't get me wrong, that we don't get to spend time with him. But it's a celebration, because he's celebrating now of a life well lived. I just want to take this opportunity now for us to ask Phil to come forward. He's just going to speak on behalf of the family.
We decided to do a combined tribute today. So it includes contributions from us four and as well as from my sister Shirley, who can't be here today. Although our hearts are hurting and we've shed a few tears, we're overwhelmingly just grateful for the time we had with Dad. We're thankful to have had him at home until he passed on. Near the end, he was ready to go, and he was at peace with that. And we're also grateful that he passed away gently in his sleep. After sitting down with the family over the past week, we shared many good memories and good laughs. One such memory was more than 30 years ago, when my mum, ever enterprising, she used to enter lots of competitions from the back of cereal boxes and magazines, wherever she could find them, in order to try and win us a family holiday. Unfortunately, she never won a thing. It became a bit of a family joke. We used to tease her and question how it was statistically possible to never win anything, despite entering thousands of competitions. One night, the phone rang. Dad answered, and he was told that he'd won a trip for 2 to the Seychelles as a subscriber of Mnet, and this is after never entering a competition in his life. It was before we had cell phones, So our phone used to be in the hall and behind a door. And my dad, ever the romantic, came through and announced, "Mary, you want to go to the Seychelles?" The more that my dad tried to explain that he just won a trip to the Seychelles, the more that my mom was convinced she was being teased and having the wool pulled over her eyes. And it actually wasn't until a few days later when the organizers phoned to confirm the flight dates that Mom accepted the truth. And I don't think she's entered another competition again. As it happened, they had a wonderful trip. And when they got back, my dad said that he'd like to take the whole family to the Seychelles, which he did the next year. Testament to the family man that he was.
First of all, I'd like to mention that John was very fond of his two sisters, and we are very sorry that Dindy cannot join us today. I'm sure he and Connie are drinking tea in heaven. I'm privileged to have been married to John, who was a true family man, for over 55 years. And I'm blessed that he was the father of our 4 wonderful, loving, and caring children who've brought into our lives their spouses and our 6 grandchildren. He taught them the importance of family above monetary wealth. I consider myself a blessed and a wealthy woman to have been left with this wonderful family. He was truly proud of each one of them and always showed love and kindness to all of us. He kept me grounded when I was tempted to make hasty or rash decisions. He believed that actions speak louder than words, and he was a man of few words who always methodically and patiently planned any decisions he himself made. He allowed me and the children to make our own choices and decisions in life, although we leaned a lot on his wisdom when making that choice. John was a humble man. Shirley reminded us that he said, "Don't change who you are or what you stand for any other person." His character was the same the day he left earth as it was 56 years ago when I met him. In essence, he lived out what the Bible says about love in 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 to 8. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud or rude or self-seeking or easily angered. Love keeps no record of wrongs, and it does not delight in evil, but it rejoices with truth. It always protects, trusts, hopes, and perseveres. Love never fails. He took me on many wonderful and exciting holidays. Travel was a great part of our lives. We explored most corners of South Africa. Although he respected people, he did not always respect his vehicle. Johan, jy sal weet. When he was history hunting or looking for a specific grave or monument, he'd drive through rivers, over rocky tracks, and on very scary mountain tracks. He was always determined to find what he'd set out to look for. So we climbed through many barbed wire fences, over gates, up many hills. We trudged through fields of weeds this high to look for graves and monuments. We visited 10 countries between Cape and Cairo. We visited 8 islands from the Seychelles to the Galapagos, far corners of Western Australia with Shirl, Gerry, Jenna, and Michal. We visited Israel, Turkey, Russia, and Croatia, 13 countries in Western Europe, and 4 countries in Eastern Europe, as well as Peru, Ecuador, and Brazil. What fun we had, and what a lot I learned and enjoyed from these expeditions and holidays. Many thanks for a wonderful married life with you. Rest in peace, my dear John.
So my dad, he loved history, and he loved to research and to record things. He was like this sort of eternal student, you know, like he had this very inquiring mind, and as one of his friends said, he was one of the few men he knew that was capable of original thought. He would always travel with his bird books, his map book, his national history monument, his diary, and his video cameras. He was sort of like this walking encyclopedia or like a walking Google. So if ever you needed to know something, you could just ask my dad, or he would find out. He loved writing, and he wrote a diary from the age of 14. So there's about 60 diaries in the house, plus his dad's diaries as well. He took all his father's diaries, and he wrote a book about the family history. He finished the book last year, and we and all our extended family, we all got a signed copy by the author for our Christmas present. Then this year even, he already neatly hand-wrote hundreds of pages from his own diaries, and he also has some recorded funny stories, so one of us are going to have to finish that. And he loved nature. He loved birds, he loved trees, he loved flowers, and he was always videoing them. And he really loved cows, especially Friesland cows.
His love of nature reminds me of one of the family holidays we shared in Kruger, one of the many actually. On this particular holiday, we were driving between Lower Sabi and Skakuza in our trusted combi, and it started firing on 3 cylinders. Now, for those of you that have never heard a combi fire on 3 cylinders, it sounds like a loud volley of explosions, and it only stops when you put the engine off. It's not something that's conducive to game viewing. Realizing his dilemma, my dad quickly worked out that the only solution was to forge ahead and press on to the garage at Skakuza. When we came to a bend in the road, we came across probably 30 vehicles who obviously must have been looking at something pretty special. Dad forged ahead, undeterred. By this time, my sisters and myself were practically hiding under the seats. And I actually did notice my mom also sit sort of significantly lower in her seat as well. I caught a glimpse of a pride of lions bolting off into the bush. And a large number of game viewing Transvaalers waving their fists at us and wanting to lynch us. All this time, Dad was undeterred, sitting upright and living by his belief of not changing who you are or what you stand for. I think he even gave them a calm wave as he drove by. I'm not only grateful for having him as a dad, but also grateful for the time I had farming with him over the last 20 years or so. The more time I spent with him, the more I realized how many outstanding qualities he had. Wayne touched on some of them, the honesty, integrity, and just the number of kind messages from the farming community and the greater community. After his passing have been overwhelming. A lot of them just mentioning him being a true gentleman and someone that was generous of his time. He was a man of the soil. He had a passion for eradicating Scotch thistle and black wattle. He believed in farming with nature and not against it, and that you must always put more back into the soil than what you take out. And I think this is how he lived his life. He always gave more than he took. He was a natural stockman, a true dairyman, and he loved his cows, as Jill mentioned. He worked with many good men and women on our staff over the years. Many of you are here today. I'd just like to thank you and say that my dad enjoyed working with you. It was a privilege for him, and it continues to be a privilege for me. Um, he showed us all what hard work looks like. He possessed a lot of courage and perseverance. Rugby he enjoyed playing. When I spoke to someone from Coxdad, he told me that he used to go and watch Dad playing rugby as it was his weekly entertainment. Seeing my dad at fullback, bringing down blokes twice his size without flinching. We think he played 11 seasons at the Coxdad Rugby Club. And it's a privilege having Bruce here today, who played 3 of those seasons with him. While at school, he broke his ankle playing rugby. And that's why he walked so badly with a limp, as you all probably remember. He battled the pain throughout his life, seldom complaining, and he always saw the sort of positive in difficult situations. He also, his courage was evident when he took the bold decision to sell the family farm in his Griqualand, KZN, to relocate with our family to where we live today. And now at the end of his life, he showed amazing courage, pragmatism, and dignity throughout his illness. I fondly remember when Dad was probably already in his 70s, and I told him and Mom one Saturday that I'd walked over the old Craddock Oxwagon Pass and in the Oceanica Mountains, and we'd find George lilies, which I'd never seen growing in the wild before. The temptation was too much for my dad. 70 years old, with a buggered ankle, and he was determined to go. As some of you may or may not know, Dad was a rare breed, and he hated drinking water. For years, he only drank copious amounts of tea. He actually probably holds the record for someone who lived the longest in medical history without drinking water. Anyway, I agreed to take Dad and Mom up the mountain the next day on condition that Dad drank 2 large glasses of water before we set off. I didn't fancy him getting dehydrated and having to carry him off the mountain. He did this and duly completed a fairly grueling hike in the mountain, which most youngsters half his age would probably complain about. It still makes me smile.
Dad had a great sense of humor, somewhat dry, somewhat subtle, and always enjoyed a chuckle. He could laugh at himself and make the most of situations. On one occasion, when he checked into his holiday accommodation after a long day, he was delighted at the generously presented suite on the guest house pillow. And after he bit into the soap, he said in his dry way, "I don't like the taste of the sweet." Shirley shared how he was a mechanic, welder, and good craftsman. His love of history and appreciation of old things can be seen in his museum, which you are welcome to visit in the garden shed over there. He collected scrap metal and creatively upcycled trailers. He even turned Port Edward shark nets into farm gates, built us a beautiful jungle gym and notorious merry-go-round with vintage tractor seats. You just didn't play hard enough at Usherwood if you never sustained some kind of injury from that scary go-round. He loved to design and weld whatever he could do, whatever he had. A boer maak 'n plan. Thanks, Dad, for your honesty, caring, humility, truthfulness, and love. You will always be close to our hearts and greatly missed. Jenna, Dad's oldest grandchild, will now do a combined tribute from all the grandchildren.
Have a drinking tea together, meaning that we got biscuits, adventuring, visiting at the dairy, afternoon naps, and talking about some part of history that he always knew so much about. He always made time for us and made us feel special and loved. We also all had our ears munched at one time or another and pulled viciously to help get Grandpa off his favourite chair. Rosie's favourite memory is when her and Grandpa would sit on his veranda looking at all the birds that came to visit. They would sometimes use binoculars to figure out which ones were which. Finn's favourite memories include trips to the Redberry farm with Grandpa and watching the videos he made of all the cousins when we were babies. Tom would spend days with Grandpa driving the lorry and loading bales, and would also bond over a shared flask of tea. Daisy will miss all the holidays with Grandpa at game reserves and sitting in the sunroom drinking tea while having a chat. Michael has amazing memories of being able to kick the rugby ball with Grandpa at Augusta, also remembering the week of convincing that was required to get Grandpa to do his yearly swim. I remember Gramps teaching me how to drive his bucky in the field by Lake Mary, with him being very patient and showing very little reaction, even when there was threat of accident. He made me feel so special when I was allowed to help name the calves, and he definitely helped instill my passion for false teeth, leading to a career in dentistry. It was always so wonderful watching his videos all together in his lounge and in the cottage over Christmas, and having the opportunity to reminisce on all the good memories and also have a very good laugh. Also, us all standing in front of the rest of the family and singing Christmas carols, notably Silent Night and Jerusalem. Being able to sit and chat about his adventures, experiences, for example, black mambas disappearing under cars and having an elephant charge his caravan, and hearing about history he studied, learnt, and collated through his investigations. The knowledge and completeness of our family history wouldn't be known to us if it weren't for his passion. We are so blessed to have had him be part of our lives, and we will miss him. With love, Bumblebee, Pumpy Boys 1, 2, and 3, and the two flowers, Daisy and Rosie.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. It's wonderful, moving tributes from everyone, wonderful memories. I just want to admit a slight mistake here. I missed a hymn. So I just want to check, can we go back to the hymn? If we would, again, want to keep your masks on, you can. What a friend we have in Jesus. Okay, do you want to call him?
Yeah, just call on the phone.
Okay, do you want to do it or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll just. Yeah, thank you. I just would like to call on the farm staff who are kindly going to sing us a traditional Xhosa hymn.
Jesu Lord, dibona manxebe ezandleni, 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 uyu Jesu Lord, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni. Jesu, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, uyu Jesu lo, dibona manxebe ezandleni, ambethele mnqamlezwe, dibona manxebe ezandleni. Dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni, Jesu, dibona manxebe ezandleni, dibona manxebe ezandleni.
Testing, testing. Seems to work. On behalf of the family, I've been asked to thank some special people. Thank you to Dr. Baumann and Dr. Elray van Heerden, who went far beyond the call of duty. Thank you to the home nursing staff at Medwell, who truly nurse from the heart. Thank you to Cynthia, who's been a great support during John's illness. Thank you to all the family and friends for their visits and support before and after John's passing. And thank you to the many friends who helped make this memorial service possible. In particular, Jill Hay and Wayne McAfee. Now to John's family. The Mullers have always been the most hospitable people, even going back to Cockstad days. John loved to visit, people to visit and discuss farming, family history, and traveling. My mother regarded it as an adventure to be included in his research trips around the countryside, which they made great fun for everyone. Because of John's historical family perspective, he had a very clear sense of his place in the family, which made him philosophical about his illness. He often commented that he'd had a good life and had outlasted his ancestors by far in age. Thank you to Mary for giving John the most wonderful care. which was so clearly done out of love. You've been John's support all his life, and now you've made it possible to end his days on the farm he loved. Both you and John have always been an example to the rest of the family. Thank you to Philip, Gillian, Shirley, Yvonne, and Georgie for all your loving support for both your parents. You have shown an amazing support for each other, and long may this continue down the generations. And then thanks to you all for coming. The weather looks a bit better now, but it looked a bit rough for a while. And thanks for the people who've come so far. Jeanette and the rest of the family. I think she came the furthest, but there are a lot of Cape Town people here too. And thank you all for attending. And just thinking about it, I think John would have been happy with the rain we've had today. I think they can send a bit more now. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, that concludes our service today. Thank you again, everyone. And the family would request now that you would stay, mingle, tell stories about John, and enjoy the lovely food that's been put on here. Thank you again. Have a wonderful weekend. Cheers now.